Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to How to Be a Badass with Crystal and Aaron. We're excited to be here tonight. We are really feeling connected to this topic about news fatigue. So we're going to dive into that some more this evening. So my name is Crystal Hines.
And I'm Aaron Linehan.
And we are the co-founders of the Kali Institute. We are a group mental health practice located in Broomfield, Colorado. We love to work with high-achieving individuals to help align them with the best versions of themselves. We do a lot of exciting work here and specialize in EMDR therapy. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, you can visit our website at thekaliinstitute.com. So, for those of you just joining us, hello. We are talking about how to handle news fatigue, how to be engaged and informed without losing your badass edge. So,
there we go.
Yeah.
Right. And so what is the news? The news is just report on recent events and what's happening in the world. And it doesn't mean that news needs to be always negative, although often it is, and it can be positive. And so we want to look at some of the positive things in the news. The reason why we focus so much on the negative is, like, I don't know if you've ever been driving down the highway and you're driving along and all of a sudden traffic comes to a halt and you can't, and you're only like, it's the middle of the day, it's like a Wednesday maybe in Denver there's a lot of traffic here, and you're driving and all of a sudden, like, we can't not look at the car, but then there's an accident on the side of the road, or it's on the other side of the road and both sides of the highway are stopped because I think we can't just help but just look at what is happening and the negative, because our brains are pulled that way. And so I think it's no different with the news either. And so there's a thing called the negativity bias. His name is John, I cannot pronounce his name. It's Cacioppo. And he did research on the brain and the negativity bias. And so he looked at stimulus that was good and positive. So things like your kid's birthday party or a mountaintop view or pizza, right? Yeah, those are the examples, right? He talked about negative things. So the examples they gave were a mutilated face or a car accident or things that are not so pleasant. And then neutral things. So like, what are the examples? A chair, a plate, hair, right? Well, Crystal's new haircut, not neutral, right? That's right. And so what they found is they put electrodes on the brain's cerebral cortex, and they found that there was more electric impulses going into the brain when negative material was up than when neutral and positive material. So your brain is literally wired that way. And so we need to, when we talked about gratitude being a practice last week, it's the same thing. And so we have to work on seeing the positive and the joy in situations.
It makes sense that our brains are wired to see the negative too, because that is key to our survival.
Yes.
So there's no shame to that.
Yes, absolutely.
We just are automatically drawn to seeing the negative.
We keep ourselves safe.
Keep ourselves safe.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's just part of how we're wired.
Right.
And once we kind of recognize that, then we can look to some of the positive things.
Right.
Yeah. So, anything else on that negativity bias?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Thank you for those just tuning in. We are talking about how to handle news fatigue, how to be engaged and informed without losing your badass edge. And our first tip tonight is focusing on and amplifying the good news by thinking about it, discussing it, sharing it, instead of always just talking about all the bad news happening.
Right. And so I want you to think about the last negative news that you watched. If you turned on the news today, then you probably saw something, I'm guessing. Do you have something up?
Yeah.
What did
when I was in the car listening to NPR, like I do, our president's last tweet to Iran.
Right. Yes. So
that's pretty bad.
Yes. Okay. And so now think about the last positive news that you saw. Hard.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard.
I can't even think of one.
Because there's not very much. And so
I'm sure there is, but I can't even think of one.
Right, because the negative is so big.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
If any of you have some positive news that's coming to mind, I'd love to see it in the comments, because my brain is like frozen.
Right. And so what was the difference, right? And so
Yeah.
for Crystal, it was that her brain was frozen. So what was the difference for you in noticing? Were you able to notice the negative, or were you able to notice a positive? Were you able to notice both? And how did that show up in your brain, right?
You know what I wonder?
Yeah.
I wonder, in our news media outlets that we have, though, if they are mostly sharing the negative anyway.
Right.
So it might even, given the material that we're getting, it might even be extra hard to find the positive.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And the good news is that I was looking for things to illustrate this point, and Crystal and I went to the Mile High TED Talks in June, which were awesome. And so I was looking up stats on TED Talks to think, because TED Talks are about technology, education, and design, and really bring forth great new and inventive ideas. And so I think that it's amazing, because I looked, and that TED Talks are viewed 1.5 million times each day, which means that the new viewing commences 17 times a second, which is amazing.
That is incredible.
Because there's so much stuff to learn, and people are hungry for that knowledge, and they're seeking it out. Yes.
That's why they're so popular.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So I think our experience at the TED Talks was incredible, and to be in an environment where people are so hungry for knowledge, and everyone wants to learn, and what the speakers have to say is so informative and engaging. If you can ever go, especially to the TEDx ones, because I think they're more affordable, because I think like the actual TED conference is pretty expensive, but it's awesome. And so what did you think
I
of
remember just there's a lot of information coming at us. A lot of it was really encouraging and inspiring, and just wonderful. And by the end of the day, so the full day of all of this, I felt so full of inspiration. I felt lifted up. I felt connected to all the people in this, huge theater. And just felt filled up, and it was great. And
it was
we
incredible.
Need more of that.
We do need more of that. And so if you have ideas about positive things that we can look into, or we love that kind of stuff. So we would love to hear from you and see what your thoughts are on that. So,
or if any of you were at the TEDx Uncommon, share some of your favorite exhibits. Speakers. They were incredible.
It was incredible.
So we are talking about news fatigue, and our second tip is focusing on agency. So often the things we hear about in the news, we can't do anything about it, and it feels that way. But there are ways in our community that we can make the world a better place. And it comes down to our values and knowing them and living them consciously.
Right. And so what are your values? So think for a second what that means to you, and what are the things that are important to you. So some people value health, and some people value happiness. Some people value financial freedom. Some people value whatever the things are that are central to who you are as a person. And simply put, the values the things that are your values are the things that you are doing right now. They are not things that you want to be. They're not things that you think that you should be doing. They're things that you are doing right now. So are you taking care of your health? Are you trying to advance in your career? Is family important to you? Like, what are the values that you're actually living? Because I think people, the things that you're actually doing are core values, and the other ones are aspirational, the things that we want to strive to be. And so I think that's an important distinction, because I think values are this sometimes ambiguous thing that people are like, you know what they are, but you don't know what they are.
And there's so many pressures of should and how we should be, and these expectations that we place on ourselves or others place on us. I like the reframe of the values are what we are doing right now in the day today, in the present. And so being clear about our values then helps us to know what ways can we actually make a difference in our community, in politics, in our neighborhood, whatever that is.
Right. And so those things can look like, do we volunteer? Where do we shop? What kinds of causes do we support? Do we donate to things? Do we have meaningful relationships in our community and to our bigger sphere, because the world is getting smaller? What are the things that you support in your life? And they may be, just be supportive of something and be engaged in your world, because it doesn't really matter if what it is that if it's important to you and you value it, then you're living it and doing it, and then that's the key.
And that helps us to find that sense of agency,
yes,
that sense of control, that sense of power, like I can do something.
Yes.
So when we're hearing all this news and it feels like, oh my gosh, I feel so helpless, there's nothing I can do, right? Getting connected back to your values to find that sense of agency, yes, so that you can do what you can do.
Even as simple as if connection is one of my values, and even if I'm in the grocery store and I connect with someone that is checking me out and treat them like a human being, like that, to me, that spreads and those things ripple. And so yes, small things are a big deal.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So if you have thoughts about how you participate in your community or the things that you value and how that shows up in your life, put those in the comments, because we'd love to hear that.
All right. Those of you who are just joining us, we're talking about how to handle news fatigue. And we're on our third point about celebrating human potential. I love this. So art, science, athletics, inventions, cool businesses out there. Plenty of people are doing amazing things and being their badass selves. Like so many awesome things are happening. And it's hard. Sometimes we lose sight of that. Yeah.
Right. And so I wanted to see what was out there, right? And so I Googled organizations that help children at the border, and I didn't look through all of them. I looked through the first couple pages, and there was 214,000 hits just on that. And so, yes, this horrible thing is happening, and families are getting split up, and that is not good. But the response to that and how people have showed up is incredible. 214,000 different sites on Google is amazing. And so I think that despite bad things are happening, there's a lot of people that are doing things to help
fight.
Fight. Yes.
People are showing up to fight, advocate, make a change.
Right. So I think that's awesome. Another one that we found was that if you think back to the Olympics, it was that the U.S. broke the 42 years of drought with the cross-country medal, and then they came in first, and she dug deep and crossed the finish line just in within a few seconds and won. And it's the first time that they've won a gold medal, let alone won a medal in 42 years. So those kind of things. Or that woman from, where was she from? Norway? No, Czech Republic? No, somewhere. Anyhow, so she won the women's snowboard, the Super G, and also won the women's ski Super G. And there's some rumor about that maybe she had borrowed Michaela Schifrin's skis and had the wrong skis, and she had never skied before, and she won a gold medal in both. And so, doing amazing things in the world. It's just, it's incredible. And then looking up, I love murals, and there's a ton of murals that are in Denver, and there's a whole urban art funding, and there's a map that if you Google, we can put the link in there, but then you can follow the murals throughout the entire metro area. But people just doing amazing things and making the city look beautiful. There was also the one that I liked a lot was that there in Paraguay, there is a slum outside the capital that is pretty much just all garbage, and it's a landfill, and they put things. And so a man, Fabio Chavez, he is musically inclined, and so I think he was teaching all the kids in the area musical instruments, and all these kids were interested. I could have the story wrong, but all these kids were interested, and they needed more instruments, and so he asked one of his friends to create them, and so they took the garbage and they made the recycled orchestra, which is so cool, because there's a whole video on this. There's a whole documentary on it.
Okay, we'll share the link in the comments.
So it's all these kids that are now have musical instruments. So they make drums out of oil barrels, or they make all these string instruments, and they sound just like normal instruments that are made with wood. So it's incredible, like taking things in a terrible situation, and these people live basically in a landfill, and they are doing something to make their space beautiful. Yes. And then companies making plastic, because there's plastic in the oceans, which is the size of huge plots of land. And so what can we do about this? And so there's companies making yoga mats out of ocean plastic, recycled ocean plastic. There's jewelry, clothes, shoes, skateboards, frisbees, sunglasses, backpacks, and I'm sure a ton of other things. And that was just on one site. And so the fact that people are solving this problem, I mean, we got a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but solving this problem and doing really cool things in the world with something that is an awful thing. Yeah, it's incredible. So the stories are there, point being. Yeah.
And the innovation and creativity and just the resilience of the human spirit. It's just really inspiring.
Yes.
And this is making me really want to try to find something each week.
Yes.
Like some kind of really good news or good local business or art or something that's going on that just feels really good.
Right. And then the last one we have is that she is one of my favorite. Her name is Myrna Valerio, and she on her Instagram calls herself the Myrnavator, and she is an ultra runner that is changing the face of what ultra runners look like. And so she has dealt with racism and sexism, and when she first started running, she created this blog called Fat Girl Running. And so lots of people gave her lots of feedback, but she just did negative feedback, and she just did this group to keep her family and friends informed of her running. And so her whole thing is that what I think is so cool is that she's one of the National Geographic Adventurers of the Year. And so in 2018. And so there is like some like Kilian Jornet, who climbed Everest twice in the same week, solo and unassisted. He's on that list, and she's also on this list. So she's changing because I run and I ultra run, so this is why I follow all those people. But she's an ultra runner who is redefining what the athlete looks like, and thinks that everyone deserves to explore the outdoors. And so she's doing so much to create like a safety place for people that normally would be intimidated or wouldn't want to explore, which is so good. I'm actually teary. It's so good.
Oh, this is the stuff that fills us up.
Yes. Yeah.
This is what's going to help us combat this news fatigue.
Yeah. And so there's so many good things happening in the world, and it's important to pay attention to those too.
Yeah. So we will share the links and videos for all these that we found in the comments. We would really love to hear any of the badass people or organizations that you guys follow or feel inspired by.
Because there is plenty of people doing awesome things in the world that we would love to know.
The more we talk about it, the more we share, the more we support. We're building community, and we're staying connected to our values. All of that stuff is helping us combat this news fatigue.
Yes.
And stay badass.
That's right. Yep.
So please share. There's plenty to go around.
There is plenty to go around.
All right. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.